Anyway, welcome to Man to Man. We're here today with Rob Matasic, and we're in a different spot than normal. You can probably tell we've got some pictures of Sean Alderson, my brother-in-law, behind us. It's our guest is Rob, and Rob, you had a pretty good relationship with Sean, and why don't you share a little bit about your relationship with him, and then we'll kind of get into it a little bit more.
I sure will. I was really lucky to have a friendship with Sean. Those that know me, my passion and my jam is fishing. That's what I do it's kind of my drug of choice, if you will.
Yep.
And Sean and I obviously shared a common thread with that. I marveled and appreciated, I guess, Sean's discipline in fly fishing. Probably one of the most, how would I say it, just a perfectionist at what he did, from how he tied his flies to his craft of specifically Euro fishing. A lot of you aren't going to know what that is.
I have no idea.
Something I picked up about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And Sean was a great mentor in helping me understand that. And it's completely changed the way I fish today. And I can say that after 35 years, it takes a lot to teach an old dog new tricks. And this guy did. He taught me a lot. Super grateful for that. And there's not a day I go on the water where his name is not in my conscious mentioned and showing appreciation. And there's a specific fly that he tied, and he shared with me, and I've given it a new name, and I call it the SOS, and that's the Sean Oliverson special. And his fly boxes were perfect, and that will always be in his honor. Again, just super lucky to cross paths with him when I did, and I miss him terribly.
Yep, and that's
all right. Well, a great memory I had with Sean in one of our many excursions that we took was a day that we went up and we were fishing up in Wyoming, and the drive over was never short of many stories, and specifically going to this river in Wyoming. We were driving along. I was actually driving, and we were laughing hysterically. I can't remember exactly all the different topics we were talking about. And we did not see a vehicle for 20, 30 minutes. And of course, the one vehicle that was coming this way was a highway patrol. And, he decided to loop around. And I think he gave me a ticket for 12 miles over or whatever. That started our fishing day. But after that, it soon was a race. We stopped for breakfast. We went to the river, and there was a ton of snow out there. And we managed to get down to the river that morning. And as always, we're sitting here, Craig Hayes and I are scratching our head. This guy here is catching all the fish with his Euro technique. And again, that's just one of the things that compelled me and fascinated me to learn more about this, because it makes a difference. It's a game changer. Mm-hmm. And Sean certainly mastered that. After we fished all day, the day warmed up a little bit, and all that snow started to soften up. And what we thought was going to be a 10-minute walk back to the vehicle turned into well over an hour, because we were falling through the snow. And I'm 6.5 foot tall, and sometimes I thought all the way to my waist in trying to dig out of this stuff. It was exhausting. And anyways, it was a great great
watching
memory.
A bunch of babies trying to crawl out there.
Exactly.
Through the snow.
That's exactly what it was.
That's I'm glad to share that story with us about Sean. But yeah, he was always a lot of fun. I know he did a lot of pranks too with in our family, and we've talked about this before. The one thing I always remember, and you probably remember this, is his laugh. His laugh was distinctive, unmistakable, and he had that kind of laugh that when he started laughing, you just started laughing, even if you didn't know, even if it wasn't that funny, you were laughing at his laugh, right? It's almost, it's kind of like my wife, but she's not funny ever. I'm just kidding. She's also filming us. So anyway, again, this is Rob Matasic. I'm going to give my 2 cents on you, and then you can give us a rundown of who you are and where you came from. So Rob Matasic is a friend that, at least, like, it's been a theme in all of these, but probably at least 20 years, baby. Yeah. 20 years. And again, another funny connection is there always, it seems like we've played a lot of basketball together various times and over the years. And if I was going to describe Rob with 3 words, for one, I'd say he's pretty detailed when he's, especially for like things in profession and work. He is always up for a good story, so he's got great stories. He's tall. That's not my He's 4. He's always tall. But
in your mind, that's the best quality of man.
that's a great quality, though, right? But
I can't change that. Sorry.
I envy the height. But another thing about him is he's just a good friend to everybody, and that's a good quality to have. Always, you know, every time I see you, it's always a happy, you know, happy-go-lucky type mood, and great to see you, that type of thing. And that's good to be around. A lot of times, you know, other people affect us. You see them and you can tell that person's a cranky bugger, and you just steer clear of them, right? But you know when you're going to see Rob, it's more like, hey, what's going on? So, and I don't know if that's a quality. I think it's a quality because I don't think a lot of people are like that. And I guess the part of that quality is you put people at ease, and that is a good quality to have, right? You make people feel like you're interested in them and listen to them, and you know, and then always, you know, give them a good courtesy laugh, at least maybe me in a story. But so those are some of the ways I describe you. How would you describe yourself?
Completely opposite. No, I'm just kidding. You know, I think
the tall part I got right.
The tall part you got right. I think the friendship that you mentioned, you know, Chris was the first guy as I pulled that moving vehicle in to the house and opened up the back. This guy was the first guy that showed up to lend a hand as a neighbor, and never ever forget that. Meant a lot. And at that time, I was still learning about the church. I didn't know about, you know, the elders quorum, you know, helping with moves and how all that stuff worked. And so again, it was a great welcome to the neighborhood. Something that I definitely appreciate. You mentioned work and profession and details. You know, it's interesting, the career path, and it's not one that's been a clear-cut thing for me. I started in corporate America, and I spent almost 14 years in a corporate environment in a department store chain, and through that struggle, and it was a struggle. Any of you guys that work in retail or the grocery store, it is not an easy gig. And but through that, you learn disciplines, you learn best practices, you learn about people and how to empower people and motivate people. And so I took on a pretty big managerial role at that stage of my life, in that stage of my career, which, you know, when I was finally realized and saw the light and got out of retail, you know, it was a good transition, because then I learned there was a life outside of that, a life outside of being, you know, confined and limited in what you can possibly achieve. And fast forward, I spent 13, 14 years in the mortgage industry while simultaneously starting my real estate career. So I've
when you could do both.
Like when you could do both, which was amazing. I'm a college kind of town guy. I love the mountains. I love the outdoors. My appreciation for fishing, and obviously and finding out more about Ogden was a natural thing for me to do. And again, just appreciate what we have here right in our back door. And stayed in Arizona until I met my new wife, Becky. Her family being here in Ogden, and work brought me up here originally. Our company was doing some work up here, and so I was kind of working remotely back and forth, and so that fast forward, that ultimately landed me up here, and was, once the kids made it through high school, was to land back here anyways. It just happened sooner than what we had anticipated.
You mentioned Becky, and so I know, right, her whole family, and so that was one of the first things to ask you was you had a pretty good relationship with your father-in-law, with Kendall. He was, and I knew him, not obviously anywhere near like you knew, but knew that he was just a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he had a big impact on you, right, as far as in life. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and maybe how and I'm assuming he, you know, helped you through any struggles or transitions and things like that, and what kind of, you know, what that relationship was like and how it helped you.
Yeah, that again, something that near and dear to my heart. I mean, it from the start when I met Becky and her family, Kendall, of course, being protective of Becky, he wanted to know who this guy was from Arizona.
Yeah.
And he probably sensed, and I probably shared with him, my faith and my beliefs at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Kendall gave me the first Book of Mormon and gave me that invitation to read it, and
Mm-hmm.
which of course I did. It took me quite a while,
Yeah.
but I went through that, and long and short of it, after I went through my divorce, I was looking for something I could identify with, and I have been always extremely grounded in what I know to be true and my beliefs from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some significant things that have happened where I've just know that there's something far bigger than each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had that relationship with Christ my entire life. And interestingly, when he gave me that Book of Mormon, I was still living in Mesa, and I was going to multiple different churches at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, there's that ward building, just like it looks like the same one
Yeah.
up here. So I showed up. Of course,
Yeah.
I went to the wrong session.
Yeah.
But anyways, I met with some people there. I'll never forget the first handshake came from a returned missionary. I remember his name clearly, Matt Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
And he just made me feel welcome, as everyone else did, very, very quickly. And it just felt like a good place, like I was returning back home.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was an easy transition for me, and that was a big part of my life. It was a huge part. When you spend the first 42 years of your life doing crazy stuff and doing stuff
That's a pretty big change, a transition.
It is a huge transition, and the fear of making that choice was immense. I can't even tell you how substantial that was, and just coming at peace, saying, what is, and I couldn't deny what I was feeling and the choices I wanted to make. And so I did. I took that leap of faith, and I said, you know what? I don't care what the impact is to friends, to family, whatever the case may be. This is a direction I'm going to go, and I did, and I have not regretted it. It's been wonderful. I've met a lot of great people, and again, it's allowed me to have that connection and that relationship with Christ that I've always had, and just allows me to appreciate a lot more.
Yeah.
You asked about Kendall and his influence. So, he kind of started that with that. When Becky and I married, the thing I got to say about her family, and especially about her mom and dad, they always they went out of their way to make sure that I knew I was accepted. And Beverly was someone of very few words, but I always felt like a comedian, because it didn't matter what came out of my mouth. She laughed hysterically. I know that was her way.
She's giving you the courtesy laugh to make you feel good, right?
I know that was her way of saying, Rob, we love you.
Yeah.
And then that was just her way of doing that. And one story I'll never forget about Kendall, and I don't think I've shared this too often, is Becky and I. Well, we were going over for a game or something at his house, dinner. And I was driving back from work one day, and I was going down a side street, and I saw this boat on the side of the road, right, for sale, little bass boat. And I kept looking at it, and I'm like, man, if I was in Arizona, this was right up my avenue. I'd buy this sucker, fix it up, get out on the lake. Well, I mentioned it to Kendall, or I was just talking about, this is a really cool boat. So fast forward, Becky and I were in, I want to say, gosh, I don't know if it was California, Las Vegas, I don't know where we were on a trip. And she shows me a text message, and it's Kendall saying, I bought the boat. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He can't do that. Granted, it was $1,500, so it's not like a big deal, but he bought this boat.
Yeah.
And I didn't think much of it until afterwards, and when I finally realized, I think what he did was be that father figure.
Yeah.
And, we worked on it together. we put the money in the hat. We split everything down the middle, and we had project after project identified. And and his dad, Becky's grandfather, he was a big fisherman, outdoorsman. Spent a lot of time on the water, and that Kendall remembers a lot of that from his youth. And our success when we finally got that boat out on the water and running. I remember, and there's a picture floating around somewhere I took of Kendall, and he's behind the wheel and the sun's setting, and he's got his hat on and
just cruising.
And to me, it's just like that's what it's about. That's what it's about. But again, it was his way, I believe, in showing that, hey, these are things that you can do when you accept somebody and you love somebody.
Yeah. How you've had some, I don't know if challenge, adversity, some change, transition, tough things, like talking about going from in your 40s to living life literally one way and probably the polar opposite within a year. You've had, or what do you do to help yourself stay mentally, like emotionally strong, like when you have tough times?
Probably not enough. Probably not the right things. I think I mentioned, having that relationship with Christ and relying on, the grace and the forgiveness that we all, can enjoy, and also the guidance. If we take the time to open that communication up and really strive to understand those kinds of problems. So I know that's, like I said, that's a work in progress for certainly for me and probably a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know I don't do my best with that, and I struggle sometimes. I don't know if you're looking for specific challenges.
No, I'm just anything. When you're saying that, it even makes me almost think. I'm probably one way you deal with stuff, and I think maybe a lot of guys, there's different ways. One is even you telling a story using friends fishing. That's probably a big therapeutic thing, and playing sports basketball. It's a good way to, that community that you have. You got a fishing community, you got a basketball, you got a sports community that get together, and keeps us all. It gives us a chance to let off our steam and get in a fight or punch somebody. But no, I'm half joking about that. But yeah, I think that's probably one, right? Just from what you're saying. That's one way to keep yourself somewhat grounded and sane is to, we've talked about it in a lot of these man-to-man interviews that we filmed, and I totally believe it. There's about community, having a community of guys that you feel like you can, and open up to them, which is what this whole thing's about. Is like, I know Sean had a community, and sometimes it's the biggest thing for all of us, I think for men, is to open up to the community that we do have, because I think there's always somebody there. It's just maybe, and that's a good reminder, and his life's been a good reminder to reach out for me to, like, shoot somebody a text once in a while, or just, because you just never know. You never know what other people are going through. And, I think I'm more aware now that people are going through more than you ever realize. You just always thought, oh, that person's this kind of a person, they've got everything figured out, or when really, I think we're all in that same boat of just trying to figure out which way's up, sometimes, and keep moving forward in life. So
I think having good friends and good community, good neighbors, and people that just aren't on the surface, but if you truly needed something, making sure that we all have that resource, where we don't feel like we're a problem, and it's hard for men. That's a tough thing to do, to be saying, hey, I've got a problem. And if you have somebody that's close enough that you trust with whatever is on your mind, or that you're struggling with, I think it's extremely important. And I've been blessed to have those resources available, for someone to listen, and to also know that they're not going to judge me. They're not going to judge my situation. And that can also help you get through that. So I think there's a spiritual side. There's a reality side of who we interact with. And then you kind of started and alluded to, my drug of choice is fly fishing. That selfish moment in time where if you really want to detach and go to that safe place, and that place where People call it their Zen, they call it their whatever. It's where I go to recharge.
Yeah.
And I just haven't convinced Becky that Sunday should be a day spent on the river yet. Because I just feel, I mean, you really can connect with a lot of your feelings when you're alone, you're quiet, you're out there all alone.
Yeah.
It's been, I've had some great moments. And again, to be able to share those with friends. I love to teach. I've introduced many people to what I love to do. Some know this. I'm part of a nonprofit, fly fishing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you teach. Don't you do it for? Is it kids? Teach kids how to fly fish?
It is. Like it's called
clinics?
fishing. It's called Fishing's Future, and we teach kids and their families how to fish. And I have a chapter here in Ogden, Utah, and I have a gentleman that used to teach fishing within the Ogden School District, and so he's partnered up with me, and we go out to various events, and to me, again, that's just a great way. I figured I wasn't going to make a living doing it, so the best way to do is volunteer and give back. And so I've been lucky to be able to do that and participate in that. But those are kind of I think the three biggest things: having, finding out, where you connect from a faith standpoint, spiritually. Making sure you have people that know you, that love you, that you can trust, and then again, what do you do? Whether it's going up on the trails to go for a hike or go fishing, whatever you like to do. I think it's important you pursue that passion any chance you can. Life is short, and we need to make that an important part.
Yeah. You said. You talked about get out there, like you do that. You're giving service, and I remember there's a book. I saw it was a podcast. Yeah, it was a podcast too, but I've got the guy's book I'm reading. Dr. James Doty, a guy, and he said, and he wasn't talking about religion or anything at all. He was talking about the whole reason that we're here on this planet is to serve people in service, and when you think about that, I mean, really, when you're out there doing that, any of us, and you're giving your time, you're serving somebody else simply out of just trying to help them, it keeps you in a better, I think a better emotional and mental state, because that's what we're really here for, is to serve other people and not serve ourselves. And when we get caught up in serving ourselves, I think that's when, sometimes we're serving our thoughts. If our thoughts are negative or we let ourselves get there, then we end up in a bad place. But so I mean, that's, you basically, by you're telling all these things you do, you're already doing it. You pretty much have a thing that how you stay grounded. You were about to share something. Go ahead.
So I think what you were referencing as far as that service and one thing that I really connect with and within that service is just the kindness. I think that doing that and participating in that's the greatest healer of all. I think a lot of times in some of the biggest challenges, it's really hard to look outside of yourself and your own pity and your own circumstances and saying, gosh, what can I do? Who can I go out and lend a hand to and potentially make a difference for? And through that effort, great things happen. Blessings are bestowed upon people, and it's neat to see that. It's neat to be aware of it, because I can tell you, even though I thought I was a great guy and a good person, you're just more aware of it now. Now that I know what I know, and so I think that's
the wisdom too. If you get a little bit older and have some life experience too, you see what really matters.
Yeah, and I think too, being patient and understanding that everyone's circumstances are going to be different.
With everybody that I've talked to, I always feel like they're saying at least one thing, if not more, there's somebody out there that can relate to and might help them in some way, shape, or form, and which is really important. So, I don't remember that I was the first one that showed up, but at least good. I'm glad I did when you moved, helped you move. But anyway, and Rob's been awesome ever since. Been good friends with him, but grateful for you. Thanks for doing it. Appreciate it, brother. Love you, and have a good one.